What's up, Internet? You're tuned in to episode 20 of the FlipScreen Games Podcast, a weekly video game podcast where two best buds from different nations come together to discuss the wide, wide world of video games. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined, as always, by my very good friend, Mr. Stephen Radford.
Hello, hello.
And co-host, sorry.
Yeah, sometimes I was like back for the first time. Sometimes I'm co-host.
For the first time on the show, Stephen Radford.
Thanks for having me.
Round of applause,
it's lovely to be here.
Round of applause. So amazing that our schedules could finally sync up for this. I'm really glad to have you on the show.
I've been wanting to do it for a long time. I've been watching you from day one.
I thought on this episode
really
all about Xbox. Like, who better than the Xbox expert?
You absolutely knew we were talking about Xbox today, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you didn't wear the t-shirt.
Here's the thing. The t-shirt is dirty, and it is too warm to wear the hoodie. I had a hoodie. I was, like, ready to rock.
Okay.
So instead, you all get to see my My Hero Academia shirt. Apologies that I didn't wear the Xbox shirt.
And it's the same color as your new Sprite that Ray drew you.
Yeah, and no one has seen that yet, which is it's awesome. Spoiler alert. But you know what? Here's what I'll do. And I'm wearing a PlayStation headset and everything. This is bad. All right, here's what I'm gonna do, Steve. Here's what I'm gonna do.
Okay. Pete's gone. I have no idea where he's going. I'm guessing he's going to get some kind of Xbox thing. Oh, he's back. He's back with an Xbox controller.
We got the 20 anniversary Xbox controller that will be hanging out here as we talk all about
Very
Xbox
nice.
today. Because this is a very special episode of the FlipScreen Games Podcast. This is going to be our last proper episode for the year. If you haven't checked out last week's Nintendo Noise, we talked about it over there. We're going to have an extra episode that'll come out on Wednesday of this show, which will kind of be our holiday year-end wrap-up type episode over there. We'll be doing Game of the Year as our first episode back in the new year. So if you're looking to where our Game of the Year conversation is going to be, you can look forward to that in just a couple weeks. But we'll have that special episode on Wednesday. Chewy will be on, and we're going to kind of run the whole gamut on that one. So please get your questions in right into that episode. We'd love to hear from y'all and kind of what your thoughts on the year were and what your plans are for the holiday and what you're looking forward to next year. All that fun stuff.
And we got a special version of Name That Game with the 2021 lineup. So get ready. Get ready.
I didn't even know that. I'm finding this out for the first time. Wow. That's incredible. Yeah, so that's going to be a good time. But on this episode, like we teased, it's all about Xbox, right? We had to kick our Halo Infinite campaign discussion a couple weeks because, there was the Game Awards and all this other stuff going on. So we're finally able to talk about Halo Infinite. I'm very excited to talk to Steve about it. We have not spoken about this campaign together at all, so I'm super excited to hear your thoughts. And we're also going to talk about Power On, the story of Xbox, which was a documentary series that Xbox put out on their YouTube channel just last week, I think. And we got the chance to watch the whole thing. We're going to talk a little bit about it and some of the kind of like Xbox history that we were able to learn from that awesome series. And it's going to be it's all about Xbox today. So strap in, folks. But before that, let me remind you that this episode of the FlipScreen Games Podcast is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of December. They are Andy Radford, Christian Oliveria, Christopher Valenz, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, a.k.a. Asobi, Smilky Shake, Wakahula, and Zaid Ida. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/FlipScreenGames. I always want to say over on FlipScreen.com, which does not exist. Right? Our website is flipscreen.games, but for some reason, I just always want to go to that .com, It just feels natural.
I'm going to that .com and there is nothing.
We should buy that. I shouldn't have said that.
It's not available to buy, but yeah.
Okay, good, great. Well, fingers crossed. But speaking of the Patreon, that is, of course, the best place to show your support and to get some extra goodies and perks from us, including one more thing, our Patreon exclusive podcast, where this week on the show, we talked about our cats a little bit more. And Steve applying to Bake Show.
Well,
Maybe.
sort of, but yeah.
Sort of, maybe. We'll see.
I'd love to go listen.
You'll have to tune in and find
yeah.
out what happened. Yeah, so go check that out. It was a good conversation, and we've got one more of those for you for the year as well. So that'll be out by the time that you're listening to this. It should be out. So yeah.
No. Yeah. No.
Yeah. Oh,
That
no, we
is the
don't
one
have
more.
one more for the year. This is the one more for the
This is
year.
the one more. Yeah.
Correct. Sorry, I'm posting them all at the same time because our schedule is weird this week.
I was going to say, unless we're recording one Tuesday, which I don't think we are.
We're not.
Yeah.
We decided we were going to stop after that one.
The Wednesday show is the final thing, but there is going to be a stream as well, right? We're doing a Wednesday stream with a bit of Jackbox, probably some other party games. Everyone's invited.
And where can people find that, Steve?
Twitch.tv/FlipScreen Games, of course.
Every Thursday, we're usually there playing multiplayer games together, and you've been playing Shenmue on Wednesdays. You finally finished it. So
I did finish it, yeah.
If you want to go check out that whole journey with Steve and Ray from the community, who is, of course, the artist behind the Nintendo noise backgrounds and these amazing pixel art pieces that you'll start seeing on the channel very soon. So yeah, that whole archive is available. If you subscribe at the blue coin level or above, you can get our entire Twitch archive over on the YouTube channel. And bunch of great content for you over there. So go check that stuff out. But if you don't have any money to throw our way, that's no big deal. There are a bunch of free ways you can interact with the show, including writing in to get your thoughts read on the air for our main topic, our mailbag segments. You're gonna want to go do that for next week's show. That's like I want that to be a big chunk of the show, is just hearing from you listeners about the end of the year and everything and how you're feeling going into 2022. So make sure you write in for next week's show. There's a couple ways you can do that. You can hit us up at questions@flipscreen.games. You can come join our Discord, which is a fun, inclusive community where it's a great place to come talk games and meet up with some of the folks who you hear writing into the show every week. Come chat with Steve and I. It's the best way to keep the conversation rolling after the show ends. But we're also on social media at FlipScreen Games. Follow us on Twitter. We don't tweet that often, so we're a good follow. All right, so let's jump into it. I want to start with Halo, right? Like what we've been playing. We've been playing Halo. Okay, let's talk about Halo. I know that, you really enjoyed the test flight stuff. I got very into the multiplayer these last couple weeks after we had that kind of that early launch in honor of Xbox's 20th anniversary. But then you didn't really get much time with the multiplayer since then because you've been really into Forza. You've been playing a lot of other stuff. So how are you feeling about, I guess, how far in are you? How much have you played? How are you feeling about Halo Infinite's campaign so far? Where's your excitement level with it right now?
So I'm pretty far in. I've got all of the power-ups. I've acquired all 4 of those. I've leveled each of them up once, and I've leveled the grapple hook up 3 times. And I can't decide if I love this game or not. And it kind of feels like at the beginning I was really into it. I liked the kind of linear stuff. I got to that big open world section. I thought, wow, this is fucking cool. It's like Halo open world for the first time, and I can wander around and do all sorts of things, but not really, because there's sort of towers you go into that turns into a linear experience. There's the conservatory you go into, which is like a linear experience. So it's sort of like this is like an upper world, like an overworld that then takes me into these more linear sections. But in that overworld, you also have these outposts that you can take down. You have the fobs, which are like mini outposts. You have basically stolen from Destiny, the high value targets that you can go and take down. And I don't think I like that aspect of it because I find it really repetitive. And I'm even finding some of the missions a bit repetitive. I'm on one at the moment where I've got to take down 4 beacons, and they're like all over the map. And the whole, I guess, point of that is to get you to explore the map and do all of these little things in between, and do the high value targets and the outposts and things like that in between, go into these different areas. But I don't want to do that. I just want to progress the story. And I genuinely cannot decide if I enjoy it or not. And the story, I don't know if it's because I never played Halo Wars 2, which I know is where a lot of the stuff comes from. Like the Banished aren't in any of the other games. They were introduced in
Right.
Halo Wars 2,
I forgot about
which is
that.
why I don't understand who they are. I don't know them. I didn't play Halo 5, so I don't know about the stuff with Cortana. But I don't know, it feels like there's some glue missing with the story. It just feels like something hasn't been explained. It's like the beginning of the game was missing, right? And you just are chucked in halfway through where Master Chief is in the middle of space. And it feels like we should have had a little bit before where it showed what happened and how Master Chief got there. And maybe that was in previous games. I don't know because I haven't played them. But it just felt a little bit, I don't know, a little bit strange to me.
So it's interesting because I think when it comes to the story side of things, and I'll give my same stats and everything in a minute. It's not really bothering me because ultimately, like, the story of Halo is something I really only cared about a lot in the first game. And in general, like, just the whole, like, okay, Master Chief is lost out in space and he hooks up with this one pilot and this new AI friend, and he decides he's going to reclaim this entire fucking ring by himself, one fight at a time. I'm like, that's good enough. Like, that's honestly all of the framing device I need for a Halo game, personally.
Right, but it feels like they're talking about things that have happened in between it. It's like he knows exactly who Master Chief is. He's like bigging you up the entire time, talking about how great you are. He shows up on fucking phone calls every 2 minutes. You're like, he's a hologram, and then he's calling you on the radio. The main villain dude, I can't even remember his fucking name. He knows exactly who you are, and you have zero clue who he is. Possibly do if you played Halo Wars 2, I don't know. And it just feels so strange. I don't know. It's just like I should know who he is, and we don't have any much of that backstory. And you have those small holograms where it's like back, like a flashback to Cortana, and I can't remember her name for the life of me, but the like general woman who tells you what to do and sent you on this mission in the first place.
I think it's Halsey.
Halsey, yeah. And you have like some flashbacks to her.
Yeah.
But then they sort of go away. You don't get any more of those, and they like fade out as the game progresses, and it's becoming less and less of a focus on the story and more of a focus on the gameplay. And to be perfectly honest, I'm fine with that because I think you're right. That is what the draw is here. And really, the main draw is that fucking grapple hook because, oh my god, it's so fun to just get around with the grapple hook. And I'm at the point now where I've like got it so the slowdown is the cooldown is a lot less, so I can just shoot it and shoot it and shoot, and I feel like I'm Spider-Man.
I just unlocked the 40% cooldown reduction, and I'm like, oh my god, I can chain these together so much now.
It's really, really good. And like if you're moving or you're jumping, if you jump and then do it, you get like that momentum, and the jump is like pushed through the grapple hook, so you continue to jump even further when you go up.
I love it.
The physics of it is just so good. I really, really like it.
But
yes,
I just wanted to say real quick before we get too far away from the story, because I agree with the point I made about not feeling like I don't need a ton more of the story, and the idea of like me not knowing who this character, but this character knowing who Master Chief is makes sense to me, because like Master Chief is famous among the galaxy as like all the Covenant call him the demon and everything because he's like unkillable and whatever. He's a legend, right?
Oh, okay,
fine.
yeah.
I buy that well enough, but I totally agree with you that because there's all this fucking stuff, like there's like a scene early in the game where the new AI that you work with is so far she's
Weapon.
Yeah, just been called Weapon. I don't know if she gets a name.
No, she is just known as Weapon.
Okay.
I don't think she gets a name. I'm about like 70% of the way through the game, and I don't think she's ever getting a name other than Weapon.
Cool. I didn't know if that maybe was a thing that would happen sooner or later. But Weapon like asks Chief about Cortana, and it's clearly an opportunity for like the writers to be like, well, here's what happened. But Chief doesn't talk like that. Like he's a man of few words. He's like got that real like, like John Wayne type energy, right? Of like he just kind of he's just like
he's a Vin Diesel kind of character.
Yeah, he's very just like, like stuff went south, like that's like his response to that kind of question. It's like, it doesn't matter, like the mission changes. It's like, okay, all right, cool, like that's his vibe.
And do you know what I love? I absolutely love the interaction with Weapon though, because I do think I think Weapon is fucking hilarious. She is so funny.
Yeah.
And it's like that unintentional comedy. Like she doesn't know she's being funny because she's an AI. She's a bit stupid. She doesn't understand these like human interactions.
And he's like the straight man. Like their dynamic works really well, I think. I agree. And that's the thing is like for me, the framing device is whatever, like it's not great, but like I like the writing and the script enough where I'm like, yeah, like this is getting me from A to B and I'm enjoying it, and that's enough. It doesn't make it a great story, it makes it a serviceable story, but we are both, I think, representative of a large body of players who are coming into this game. We're people who have nostalgia for Halo or played Halo back in the day, but have never touched, the Bungie or the non-Bungie games. And like, or maybe they played Halo 4 and then didn't get to 5 or whatever.
And can you imagine the number of people that didn't play Halo Wars? Like that's an RTS. People aren't necessarily into that, and they want they just wanted to play the FPS games. And you're introducing a new class of people, a whole new species that haven't been in any of the other games. And like, well, who are these people?
I think that the game could have benefited from a like, kind of like Star Wars-esque like text crawl or something in the beginning.
I think it needed a Metroid Dread style little where we see like little pictures. It doesn't even need to be a full motion video or anything.
Just like this is like, just like a base thing of like, hey, like the story so far, right? Humanity went into space and we did these things and we interacted with the Covenant and they tried to kill us and Master Chief is humanity's greatest hero and our biggest hope and blah, 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 blah. And here are the banished and blah. Okay. And then now here we are. Like, just give me like 3 pages, like just quick beats, couple paragraphs. And if you know this shit already, you press start and you skip it. Like, That's
yes.
I feel like
I don't care about this. Yeah. I think I agree with that. I think it would be good to have a little bit of backstory, a little bit of context.
Just try to initiate the new folks.
And I think you're right with that interaction with Weapon when you first get out into the kind of open area on the actual Halo, the ring itself. And she does that, wow, what happened here? And then it's like remember Cortana turned bad because of this. But I had no idea, and I had to speak to a friend who was like, oh yeah, all AI within the Halo space, they go bad after a certain number of times.
I went and read about it.
A certain number of years.
And I feel like I have the gaps filled in that I need now. I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, I get what happened with Cortana. I have enough of an understanding about who the Banished are. I'm in. It's fine. I get it. But I do agree that the game should do that work, They had to know that there would be folks or like just young people who are like, oh, like I've never played Halo before, right? Like the last, couple of Halos.
Right, yeah, because because it was 20 years ago the first one came out.
Yeah, right. So I feel like that would be smart, but ultimately, I don't find that getting in the way of my experience because like I am really like I'm there for the gameplay and like I said, the beats of the characters are good enough. But I do feel like that's a thing that they could use the pilot for more. And I can't remember his name. But
his name is Echo 216. But I just think he looks like an Aldi Joel. He looks like Joel from The Last of Us Part 2 or The Last of Us for me. And he just looks like a knockoff version, right?
That's funny.
He's got that sort of like beardy look.
Sure. This is a scruffy dude. But I feel like they could use him in those moments where like we need to know something. And Weapon asks, and Chief gives a non-answer, and then he's like, this is who Cortana is, and like just explain it real quick, like there are ways that you could contextualize this stuff in the existing universe.
The bad guy that's constantly calling in, you could just have him say like, oh, I managed to take down Cortana, she ruined everything for you, she won us this war. You could have had that side of things, because as soon as you go do that tower, he pops up on the fucking hologram and he's there shouting his mouth off, and he does it every single time. Yeah.
So I do want to like shift over to talking more about just kind of like the game itself, because I guess I'll give my stats. I'm probably maybe 5 hours in, 6 hours in.
Yeah, so
I
you've just done the first big mission after you got out into the open world area, but you said off mic that you did all of the fobs, which are like
yes.
the mini bases.
So yeah, basically the first time that the game spit me out into the open world, I intentionally avoided doing the story advancement mission and went and did every other thing on the section of the map I have access to. So like I did all the fobs, which are like the bases that are filled with, enemies that you can take out like any other, open world like game.
Anything since Far Cry, yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. And then I also did like every other collectible or side thing so I could get like all my upgrades and stuff. So I only have 3 of the skills. But I have 3
Which ones have you got then?
I have the grappling hook, I guess the overshield isn't really a skill, but that's on the upgrade tree. And then I have the sonar thing.
You don't have the pop-up shield yet then, which is
No.
the other one. Okay.
So, but like
So my issue with those power-ups is the way you access them.
it's annoying.
You have to remember where they are. It's like press right, and I'm constantly looking down at the bottom right screen because I very rarely use anything other than the grapple hook. I've always got the grapple hook equipped, and I want to quickly switch to like pop a shield up if I'm in an emergency. But I'll always like pick the wrong one. I'll press right and I'll press up instead of right and down to bring the shield up or whatever. And I just wish they had like a wheel that
Yep.
slowed time down a little bit, and I could like quickly select the one I wanted and then pop it down and then go back to what it was, or have the grapple hook constantly equipped, and I had another thing on the D-pad. There's not enough buttons. Like I don't need the grenade constantly as the left button to be able to switch between the sticky or the thingy grenade. Like you could have that as like a double tap with a button or something to switch, or you hold down Y and it switches your grenade instead of switching out your weapon. I feel like there would have been a better UI for that, and that for me is the biggest issue I have with the moment-to-moment gameplay, is the selection of the grenades or the selecting of the power-ups. It's mainly the power-ups I have an issue with because I'm constantly chucking that fucking beacon when it's just like I don't need this. I'm never going to use this. I don't care about it. All I want is a quick shield or a grapple hook. And the other thing is like the weapons, right? So you'll have 2 weapons and you'll be shooting one around and then it runs out of bullets and you'll switch over to the secondary. But then you find another weapon nearby and you're like, oh, I'll switch to that one. But you have to switch back to Y, pick up the weapon. And I know this has been the case in all of the Halo games.
That's also
I just
like
wish
how
it would...
every shooter is.
Yes, I just wish it would like, I don't know, swap out the empty one for me, because it should know it's empty, but then I guess I might want to save that one because it's a really good weapon. Like it might be a Hellfire, or it might be one of the ones with the knife on the end or something. So
Although I guess there's an argument to be made that if you like the only way you'd be able to use that gun again would be if you found another one that had ammo. So like you would have it again, So like theoretically, what you're saying would make sense either way. But
But there are those refill stations, but I don't think you can ever refill the special weapons like those.
Some of them you can, actually, now that I
Because
think
they're
about
like
it.
kinetic ammo, and then you've also got like the radiation
Yeah,
ammo,
and like the kinetic ammo.
lightning ammo, plasma ammo.
I usually I'll keep a shotgun with me and do that, So
And something that I really love is like grappling things, right? I don't know if you've managed to do it yet, but you can grapple a gun out of an enemy's hand and
Yes.
just steal it off him.
Yeah.
It's so satisfying to do it, and they're like, what the fuck's happened? Or grappling onto a moving ghost and you knock the person out of the seat and you grab and you're now driving the ghost.
I haven't seen any ghosts yet, I guess, because like I'm still in like the first area, So like
they're the only thing I can drive in the game. A fucking warthog is the worst thing ever.
they control so bad.
I just hate it so much.
They're so hard to drive. I'm like, now that I've been playing a lot more Halo, I'm kind of more used to it again because like they have a right way to drive them, and then they're not that volatile. But like,
it's like push the left stick always forwards and just use the right stick to control the direction.
The one thing that I don't like though is the Scorpion. The tank is terrible. It's so hard to fucking steer, and like it can't drive over anything. So like it just like you'll just like get stuck between like 2 things, and it's like all right, fine.
So I guess I'll get out of this then.
Yeah, and like I remember like the first time you get one in like there's like a mission where one's just like in a hangar, and I took it out to go to the next area, and I finally get there, and I got stuck on something, and a grunt just ran up and threw a sticky grenade on it and fucked the whole thing up right away. So I was like, I drove it all the way over here, and it's already about to explode.
I absolutely love the grunts as well. There's the ones. Have you had the one where it's like, oh no, I accidentally turned them both on, and he like runs towards you with like the two grenades in his hand, and then like accidentally explodes. They are so funny. The grunts are really, really funny. I love them.
It's so funny because Sarah has been like sitting in the room with me playing a lot, and she's like, I didn't realize that like Halo was like so like silly. Like I thought that it was like very like self-serious, and it's like not really. Like Master Chief is a very serious character, but like I sent you a tweet earlier from Lucy O'Brien from GameSpot, and she was just like, I always forget that like all the fucking Covenant are like goddamn Looney Tunes, you know, like like the grunts are always cracking jokes. They're like, I love where like they'll be like sitting around talking like about like whatever they were like, oh, like I had a situation last night where I was going to take out a high value target, and there's like these group of grunts and jackals. And the one of the grunts is like, oh, been a long day of killing humans. And then like I jump in, and then he's immediately just like, there he is, get him. And I kill one of the other guys, and they're like, no, run, and start like spitting out, and they just start, you know, tearing ass to get away and stuff. And oh my god, I don't know. It's the amount of unique dialogue is really impressive. Like I feel like there's not a lot of repeating of anything unless it's like a beat. Like there's that boss that we were talking about. It's like the first major boss fight. Not the first one, I guess. It's like the second or third. But it's like the guy who's invisible and he has the sword. And
the first elite you encounter, I think it is.
In the story, yeah, because I went and did the high value target first, which is the same thing, only he's surrounded by an entire base of people. So it was really hard.
Would have been a lot easier if you went and followed the story and did what the game was like encouraging you.
Sure would have been, yeah. Also, I'm playing on Legendary, and I'm pretty sure there's no way to change the difficulty because I've thought about doing it once or twice, and I can't find it, and I'm just like, I guess I'm just playing.
Yeah, I don't think there is. And I was like, fuck that. I'm just gonna play this on normal.
I should have done that, but oh well. I guess I'm gonna get better.
Are you struggling with it then? Are you finding it quite difficult?
At times. And it's probably because I'm playing the game in the wrong order, and I like should just get power-ups and like.
Yeah, you need the power-ups. You need to find those Spartan cores and level them up.
I've been finding the Spartan cores because like I already have 3 upgrades on my grappling hook, or 2. Yeah, I guess I'm on level 3 of the grappling hook, and I think I also did that with the body armor. So
like, you've got the one where you can do the punch as you come in, like if you hold the melee button down and he does like that shockwave, or are you one before that?
I guess I'm one before that because I have.
So you're on the second upgrade, which is the 3rd level. Like you have the base level, then 2 upgrades.
Yeah, yes, that's what I did because it's the first upgrade was the stun. When you hit somebody.
Which is fucking awesome.
It's really
because
good.
It takes out those ones with the shields instantly. You can knock their shield out of the way and you can just shoot them in the face. So good.
Yeah. And then I also have the first cooldown reduction. But yeah, the grappling hook is one of my favorite things about it. Like the way that it has impacted traversal in Halo is awesome. Like it is a really cool solution because, you know, we were talking about this, I think recently, about how kind of like in a post Breath of the Wild world, you need to have a better solution for traversal. And most people have just been like, well, we'll just ape what Breath of the Wild does. And you can climb it, and you have a glider or something, right? Which is fine.
You don't need a glider when there's no fall damage and you're an absolute 8-foot super soldier.
There's no fall damage, and you basically just do Spider-Man shit. And it's like, oh, this feels better for Halo. Like, it would have been weird to have Chief just all of a sudden have a fucking glider. But, like, the grappling hook fits well. It has combat applications, which focuses around the main thing that you're doing in Halo, which is just getting in firefights. You know, like, all of those things I think are really, they're really good innovations on the formula. And they're things that, like, help make the open world feel like just good to be in. You know, and like that's the
Yeah.
thing that I think like I've noticed the most with my time is like I'm loving my experience, and like it is a lot of like, oh, we're gonna like go do samey things and check boxes, but like the gameplay is fun, and it's working for me the same reason that like any big open world let's go check boxes game does, where the gameplay loop is satisfying, right? I like playing Halo. I like the way that it feels to be Chief. I like most of the guns. I like all of those things work for me. So the idea of just like go here and fight a big enemy cluster, go here and fight a big enemy cluster, it's like, yeah, that's all I want to do anyway. So like let's do it.
Yeah, but if you're not into that and you're expecting something a little bit more, because I do feel like some of the reviews and some of the things I've heard people say has really like amped this up as this is like a definitive difference, is a real game changer for the Halo series, and maybe it is.
I mean, I think it is.
But I do feel still that it is the same formula, which is you're going and fighting a bunch of enemies and you're hacking into something, or you're unlocking something, or you're destroying something. There's like three types of missions you're doing. It's like acquiring data and hacking it, shutting something down, like you're destroying one of their ships, or you're stopping them from doing something, or you're destroying silos, things like that.
They have like a facility where they're like stripping down human vehicles.
Yes.
It's like things like that.
So there's like three types of things you're doing, and it ultimately is the goal to take down the big bad guy and shut down the Halo itself and get off that ring.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate goal. And I think if you go in there knowing that, that's fine. I think I went in there expecting a little more from the story. You know, I went in there expecting something like a Far Cry, thinking that, oh, well, some of these missions are going to be a little bit more unique, because, you know, Far Cry has some of those goofy side missions where you do something different, but the side stuff very much not story driven and story focused at all.
No.
It is you are just going and taking down this target, which gets you access to a special gun or a special vehicle.
It's about resources.
You're going,
like I feel like
yes.
the game is it's a lot more like weirdly, it's like almost like Metal Gear Solid 5 in that way, where it's like it's about building out your network of bases. And like when you do those side missions, you unlock I forget, it's like Valor or something like that. And the more Valor
you get the
that
Valor,
you get,
which you can spend on, which unlocks things that you can get at the
right.
fobs.
So like
you can then spawn them. But the high value targets also give you like special weapons that you can only get.
Yeah.
You can then get those back at your fob, but they have like I've done like 2 or 3, and one of them I remember is like a special plasma weapon which has no like cooldown. It doesn't need venting. You can just shoot that thing like crazy.
So like for example, like I went and did the first high value target in the initial area, and like you get like an energy sword that like is more powerful. And like now I can just anytime I go to any base, which you can fast travel to at any time and move your way around the map that way, you can basically go and restock and be like, cool, like when I go to my weapons, you know, there's like these little like loadout basically where you can go and pull up a computer and say like, I want a pistol, I want a rifle, I want a sword, whatever.
Yeah. And Macaulay saw that and was like, you know, they'd save a lot of space, and they could have had way more weapons in there if they didn't have this thing coming out, like elevator coming out and presenting you the single weapon. And that's
cool. It's very cool.
It's really cool.
So yeah, like so that's what I feel like it's about. Like the sense of progression is less about the story, and it's more about like building out your Master Chief, right? And like
and
unlocking
sort of
abilities
like,
and being able to have the weapons that you want anytime you go into a fight, rather than, oh, I'm stuck with, like you said, I had one weapon and I ran out of bullets, so now I'm using whatever I can find. And
no, I'm using a fucking needler that was on the ground.
It's like it's
Something
about
from a
like
grunt.
getting to that point where you are more powerful and able to go into those fights with more resources and more skills, you know.
And it sort of feels like they've learned from other games in that regard. You know, part of me thinks is a little bit like grinding, right? I'm grinding, and rather than leveling up my character, I'm unlocking new abilities. I'm getting Spartan cores to level those things up. I'm getting the special weapons, which makes the fights a lot easier. And that's sort of how it feels. I just personally prefer the way Destiny approaches that, and I still think Destiny's moment-to-moment gameplay is a little bit more enjoyable for me. I like having this inventory of weapons and things like that, so I'm not like constantly swapping them out. And maybe I'm playing the game wrong. I just get quite attached to certain guns, and I'm just like, I just want this gun all the time.
I see. That's
And
the
and
thing
I know
is,
that that's not what I meant to be, because Master Chief, even like right at the beginning of the game, it's like, oh, I've got one bullet in this gun. Right, I'll chuck that away. I'll pick up another one, and now I'm using a plasma pistol. I chuck that away, and now you're constantly switching and changing to whatever is available to you. And it's less about resource management and, oh, do I have bullets for this weapon to this weapon? It's just like, well, fuck it, let's just get another one and just carry on going. Let's just blast
exactly.
through.
And I think you need to like try to like adjust your mentality there a little bit, because I think it is like it's less about building out your ideal kit that you're going to use and more being like, I feel like that's what's fun about Halo is like it's about thinking on your feet, right? Like it's like about being in an arena and you're like, okay, I'm in an arena, I'm one guy, I'm surrounded by 30 people trying to attack me, and if I go in this direction there's another enemy closet, if I go in this direction there's another enemy closet, and there's resources scattered about this area that I can take advantage of. And it's like, how do I think my way out of this while trying to not get gunned down? Because if I stand in one spot for too long, that's one thing that like I am finding difficult on Legendary is like, I don't know if it's easier on normal, but like there is no option for stealth. Right? It's like as soon as you shoot one person, everybody in the camp is like, there he is, get him! And they just come
That's exactly the same.
Converge right
exactly
on you.
The only success I've had, and I don't know if you found it, but if you go up very, very, very high in certain places, you will find like sniper rifles and like an audio recording.
And I've gotten away with like one or two shots, and then they're like, there he is!
So I'll get the two super big guys, and then I'll just go down and get the grunts on the ground. But one thing I do like, and it is a little puzzly, less like a stealth game where it would be like a puzzle, because that's how I always approached the Far Cry outposts, right? I would go in as stealth. I'd have my like 50 caliber sniper rifle, but somehow there's a silencer on the end so no one hears it, and no one hears me like shooting the outpost alarm and turning that off. And that was always the challenge for me, is go completely undetected. I used to love taking
take out as many as you can until you get caught.
Yeah, and you can't really do that in Halo, but there are still puzzle elements of how do I open this gate so I can get my vehicle through, and then I can just fuck them up. Because especially when you're on a ghost and you can just fire and drive at the same time, or you hold down the left trigger and you just go straight towards them as fast as possible and you just run them over.
That's my favorite way.
It's so satisfying, and you just hear their like bones snapping. It's that like sort of like sound.
Getting the timing on that right, especially in multiplayer, is always just like yes.
Yeah, so it's interesting to me, but I think you're right. But the grapple hook was definitely a great addition to the game. It was interesting
love the physics of that thing, the way that like you're able to interact with the terrain, and like you were talking about like how you can get like the longer jump. Like I love when you're at a ledge and you run, leap at it, and get it at the right angle, and you're able to like just vault yourself over and keep going and get some air and then keep running. Like, yeah, it's
and then when you have
awesome.
the cooldown thing, it's like, oh, I can go again.
Yeah.
And then I go again and again, and you really are like traversing the area as if you are like Spider-Man, and
you can like climb mountains with it and stuff. Like that's a cool thing. Like you that's always like a thing in games, right? Where you're like, oh, I want to get here, and I could backtrack and go around this really long way, but like, oh, if only I could just jump across. It's right there, and it's like, oh, you can actually do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. I do really appreciate that. I do like that. But I was gonna say it's interesting to hear, like Jason Schreier was talking about it on Triplicate, because he had that article that was out like behind the scenes of the development of the game, that the grapple hook was developed for multiplayer first, and then everyone loved it and they were like, this is fucking great, so let's put this in the main campaign. And it was a really late addition to the single player, but to me it's so integral to how the game plays. The fact that it's the first power up you get and you have it straight away really goes to show that they kind of took that idea and ran with it, which I think is the right thing to have done. Because I think that makes the gameplay so much more fun. The fact that you can not only use it for traversal, but you can use it in combat in multiple ways, that there are unlocks that specifically help you in combat to take down enemies, I think is phenomenal. I love the grapple hook, and I love the gunplay in this game. It feels so good. My main gripe with it is repetitiveness of some of the missions and some of the gameplay, and the story just feels a little bit incoherent and a little bit like it's missing some glue to join some of the bits between it. It feels a little bit disjointed in places.
It's thin. Like it's thin. It's very much like a Zelda or a Mario type storyline where it's like, yeah,
And that's fine, because who
like,
cares about Breath of the Wild story? Well, some people do, and I'm going to have angry comments, but yeah.
But the thing is, the difference, though, is that Halo also has deep-ass lore, and they expect you to know it. And that's where you get fucked up, because it's like, man, you introduce these characters in a side game that most people have probably not played. Like, just give me some context. Give me a little context, you know? But yeah, I'm with you there, and it's funny because I remember earlier, you had said you're like, oh, like I don't actually know like how much I like this game, and it's funny that you say that because like knowing you must like this game or you would have stopped playing it. And to hear you,
yeah, well, partially, but like I was close to stopping. Yeah, the other day I was just like, I just don't care about doing another 2 of these fucking beacons. And I still haven't done them. I've gone and done other things. I just like, I do not want to do another one of these fucking beacons where I'm just gunning down and figuring out the best way to get into this. You've got to kill every single fucking enemy before a weapon can get out of your helmet and go and hack something. God knows why you can't just do that while I'm shooting people. Who knows? But that's what you've got to do. You've got to kill everything and then hack it. So I don't know. It's just something about it is, I think it is the repetition. But I know that I'm so close to the finish line at this point, right?
Yeah.
I've got these beacons to do, and then I can fly off the fucking planet and I can go do what I need to do. And I want to get to that stage. I want to finish this game. I can sense I'm coming up to the end of it. And so I don't want to give up and lose momentum at this point, because I did enjoy it up to this point. I just feel like it could have been more. I don't agree with the scores of like a 9 or a 10, at least not for the campaign. If you add the multiplayer into it, then yeah, sure, maybe. But if you're just reviewing the campaign alone, for me, it's landing at like a 7 at the moment. I think it's good, and I think it could have been phenomenal. It could have been great. I just maybe think it needed a little bit more time, but I don't think they could have given it any more time than they did. It needed to come out.
I feel like and like I'm not as far as you are, so we'll see like how I feel about the loop when I've gotten more of it. But I think for me right now, like the amount at which I enjoy the gameplay and the gunplay is outweighing the fact that like there's not variety in the missions. But we'll see. I know I have more patience for that than you do in general, right? Like I platinumed Ghost of Tsushima because I was just like, I just want to spend more time playing this because the loop is fun, right? And like I'm susceptible to that for sure. A good gameplay loop is key for me.
Yeah, whereas I like a loot loop, Diablo's loop, and Destiny's loop. It gets me staying because I get attached to those guns. I'm just like, oh, yeah, this weapon's fucking awesome. And if I grind it a little bit harder, or maybe I re-rolled, I could get something better. Yeah, and it's like that gamble. It's that hook, and like, oh, this is so good.
And it's like I think it's just different strokes for different folks. Like some people, that's the hook for them. For some people, it's a satisfying gameplay loop, you know. And like, not to say that they're mutually exclusive, but yeah, and like that just works for me, and I'm down with it to a degree. So we'll see how I feel about it, you know, when I'm 20 hours in rather than like 5 to 7 or whatever. So like fair play, but I do think that like if we're talking about Halo Infinite as a package, I'm definitely in agreement that it's in that 9 to 9.5 range.
Especially now they've added new playlists, right? You've got the Slayer playlist coming to multiplayer.
It's already out.
They've announced their plans for the like rejig of the battle pass in January and how that's gonna work. It seems like they've really listened to fans there, and they're going down the right route. So I haven't played much of the multiplayer. I've played a little bit, and
Do you find yourself feeling like motivated to check it out now that like, because you said you really like the gunplay and the gameplay and everything, like, do you see yourself like playing some games with me?
not really, no, because I'm terrible at multiplayer online shooters.
Just
So like,
play.
I just don't think I'll find it fun. But having said that, I did put about 300 hours into Fortnite when that was a new thing.
And
So
Splatoon.
maybe I will, and Splatoon, yeah, maybe I will get
It's
into
like you
it.
do
But
like them.
I do like
Halo is
them.
more like those games than it is like Call of Duty.
Yes, it is, and you have the fun, and I don't know. It was the thing that put me off was the not being able to pick between modes, and I know that's identical to Splatoon,
But now you can.
and I can't pick between the modes. But you can now. You can pick.
There's the Slayer playlist and stuff, and like they're giving you
Okay,
more
maybe I
choice
will
over.
check it out then. Yeah.
Because like now, if
Yeah.
we could just play Slayer if we wanted to.
Okay. When is that infected one in yet? I liked that mode. That
That's
was
not
good.
been added yet. I imagine
It will be,
that's-
though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like such a classic mode. I think since Halo 3. Yeah. So I hope you will, because I have really been having fun with the multiplayer, and I plan on continuing to play it. But the thing I'm missing is like not having people to play with. You know, like I've played with a few different groups of people. Like, you know, like I played with Zayd and Doc one night, and we played for a couple hours. I played with a couple of my friends who I grew up with and stuff, who I played Halo with. But like it's been like, oh, we played for like a night, we should do this again, and then like we don't. And I'm just like, man, like I'm out here
It's
playing.
a busy time of year.
I'm
That's
out
the
here
problem.
playing.
It's a really busy time of year.
Come log on and play with me though. Like let's play. Let's play some
Once
Halo.
once I finish the campaign, then I'll see. But I know I'm also getting to open up my PS5 this week, and that's gonna be
It's gonna be a time suck.
a problem, right? Yeah, it's gonna be. Oh, I've got 2 weeks, and
That's the thing, though.
seemingly
The nice thing about Halo, right? Like, is like ideally anyway, the Halo it's here to stay, right? Like the moment with the campaign is gonna come and go, and it is what it is, right? But like, you know,
we'll be playing this next year. Yeah.
we should be, yeah. I mean, I plan on continuing to play it as long as they're continuing to add content. So, you know, play your PlayStation 5 exclusives, 2022. We start our Halo team. Let's go.
We'll do it. We'll do it.
All right, cool.
And did you see the whole thing about the
We just gotta
Halo
get Chewie
tournament?
into it. If we get Chewie into it, we'll be good. We'll have
Oh
a
yeah,
ringer.
we'll be good. We'll be really good.
Because like
Yeah,
I'm solid, right? Like I'm not a great Halo player, but I'm way better at Infinite than I've been at any other Halo. Like my KD spreads are usually positive, and like I've been looking at my stats. Like my like shot percentage is like somewhere in like the high. I think it's like 46 to 48% of my shots connect. So it's like I'm getting better. Like I'm seeing steady growth in my play here. You know.
Yeah, did you see the thing about the Halo esports tournament that's going
What
on
about
at the
it?
moment? And that the Halo esports lead at 343 tweeted, "Heads up, open bracket players. You'll be playing this weekend on Series X development consoles. They're functionally identical and will be operating in retail mode. So it's the same experience. They just look a little bit differently. Why? Because global supply chain shortage is real. So 343 can't even get Series X consoles for their fucking Halo tournament that they're running. So they're having to put them on their own development consoles.
That's
God.
insane. Oh my god. I hate. Okay, you know what? Never mind. We're supposed to have a whole episode about crypto in the future, so I won't say anything right now.
It'll be coming soon. You know, the whole global shortage is going to come to an end at some point, right? And seemingly
Yeah, this whole
these
global pandemic
restocks-
thing's got to come to an end at some point, right?
These restocks are continuously happening, and I hope that people who want one of these consoles will be able to get one. I know people that have been looking for them, and if you're willing to put the effort in and can like sign up to Stock Informer or follow some of the people on Twitter that are always reposting it, like
Wario64. Turn on
Yeah.
literally. If you've never done this before, go to Wario64 and you can turn on tweet notifications. Where every single tweet a person makes, you'll get a notification for it. It will be overwhelming for a bit, But like, if you look at every single one, you'll know as soon as the restock goes up, and you'll get it. That's how I got mine originally.
And that's for US only. I recommend for like UK, Europe, stockinformer.com. They have like different channels. You can sign up to a Discord. They have a Discord, and you can go into like specific channels on that Discord and just turn notifications on for that Discord. So you'll get a notification on your phone as soon as something comes up as well.
And our Discord has a channel like that. It's not
Yes.
it's not like the most aggressive best one ever, but like if anybody in the community sees one of those, particularly Mango is amazing about being like, here's a stock in UK, here's a stock in US, here's a stock here, like, you know, he's been really good about that. So yeah, there are resources out there that you can leverage to find your console, but good luck. I know it's tough out there. I've somehow lucked out to get everyone that I've tried to get. So I know you can do it. Steve froze. This is like judgmental face. Look at him. Are you back?
Yeah, I'm back. How is my face? Is it still weird?
I mean, no, it looks normal now. No less, more or less weird than usual.
Wow. Really? What kind of face was it? What did it look like? I mean, I guess I can go back and look.
Because it's like I was saying about how it's like, you can find a next gen console. You're just kind of just like it's like very like you're just like, I don't know, like.
No, seriously, you can, because I've bought 2 PS5s and a Series X through those routes, so you can definitely do it.
There you go.
In fact, multiple Series X's. I managed to find one for my dad and my brother. My dad found his PS5 through just like clicking on links in like an article. It was, there's going to be a restock today, and he clicked the link, and there it was. So you can definitely get one if you really, really want one.
My PS5 is the only one I cheated on. That one I got. I just went to a GameStop. Before, and they let me put in a pre-order early, so that.
Yes, I know that was ridiculous.
But the Xbox and the Switch OLED I got through those means, so you can too. All right, so I know we'll talk more about Halo moving forward because I'm obsessed with it right now, and I'm so glad it's back. But yeah, I would say if you're at all on the fence about checking it out, don't be like. If you have Game Pass especially, go check it out right now. It's at the very least very good. And
even if you don't have Game Pass and you just want to play the multiplayer, it's free to play. So you can just download that aspect anyway.
Yep.
It's really just the campaign that you need Game Pass for. And I think if you get hooked on the multiplayer and you're just like, I want to kind of find out what the single player and the story is all about, then you can always just pick that up.
It's worth it. It's well worth your time. Yeah, check it out. I'll say this: it's going to be a serious Game of the Year contender for me. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, guaranteed.
In next year's, right? Because it missed the cutoff, like it did at the Game.
Not for us.
No, that's
You're the one who's like, our Game Awards are in January, so it's like, all right, fine.
I'm telling you, it's the route to go because it means we get to play more stuff. Chicory's out on Switch. So I'm planning on picking that up over the Christmas break as well. I'll be playing that when I'm down at my parents. So there's a lot of games to pick up. You've got to pick up Inscription, and you've got to play Hitman 3, which is not going to happen.
I'm dying, Steve. I'm dying. I can touch all these games, but I can't finish them, and that's
no. And I think that's fine. That's where I'm going to be at, because I'm going to touch probably some Ratchet and Clank, and maybe touch some Deathloop if I pick that up.
You got to finish all these games. You have to finish them. We have to finish them.
I can't. Have you finished Deathloop yet, Pete?
No comment. Oh my god. So before we wrap it up, let's talk a little bit about Power on the Story of Xbox. So if you aren't familiar, this is a 6-part documentary that Xbox produced. That's just all about the history of Xbox. From like inception to basically till today. You can watch the whole thing.
Yeah, kind of. The episode 6 was really the one that just like felt rushed. It felt like we could have had 7 episodes. It was like, right, here's the Xbox One and everything in the future. Like I would have loved Xbox One, and then now we do a final episode of the future of Xbox, like the Series X, Xbox Cloud,
Yeah.
games streaming, all of that, Game Pass, all of that could have been like a separate chapter, I think. But so I felt like they brushed over Xbox One because they did, it was a disaster.
I think that makes sense though, like for the narrative they were trying to tell. Like I think the last episode definitely gets a little bit like it feels like it's trying to like wrap up a narrative, right? Where it's like, yes, like we lost our way, but now we're back, and the future of
Yes,
Xbox is
and that's
bright,
the one.
you know. And
That's the one that felt a little bit fluffy for me. Like
yeah,
all of the others, they never shied away from the fact that we had to crunch so hard to get this done. We were like up against it. The console didn't turn on the first time we displayed it on stage, and it was an absolute disaster. We had the Red Ring of Death, which cost us so much, and every single Xbox 360 has been affected by it. There was the whole TV thing, and I cannot believe they showed those supercuts. Like, it was clear that they didn't want to shy away from their failures and mistakes, but then they definitely hooked it back round to look how great Xbox is now.
yeah, and it's like
And
it makes sense, right? Like it's a corporate produced, like they produced it, right? So like, of course they want to control the message to some degree, right? Um, I think the fact that that only affects the last episode makes me not feel too bad about it, right? Like I feel like
oh no, yeah,
most documentaries are guilty of that to some degree of being like here's how you should feel, right? Like let's emotionally tie this up and try to make something that's a real life thing that obviously doesn't end here feel like it has an ending. And like there isn't an end, right? Like we're at the start of a new generation. So for it to be like, let's reflect on our biggest, most public failures and, and triumphs, and then put a, positive eye towards the future. It's like, okay, yeah, like, good, fair enough. But to your point, the first 5 chapters, I think, are really, really interesting deep dives into the history of Xbox. And, like, they're more often than not a pretty it feels anyway like an honest and like an honest portrayal where they're not trying to make themselves look good, right? Like you said,
they don't have to, right? Because most of the people involved at the beginning are no longer
they
at
don't
Microsoft.
work there anymore, right?
Yeah. Like you had Seamus Blackley, you've got Jay Allen. None of those people work at Microsoft or Xbox anymore. They have no kind of need to fluff it up. They can be brutally honest. But
like they
some
had
of the anecdotes out of there, it's so funny. Like that clip where there's like Bill Gates in the room and he's just like, you don't know what you're talking about. You have no idea all along. Just shut up. I was like, fuck me. There's no way I'd want to be in a room with Bill Gates when he's telling you to like shut up and you don't know what you're talking about.
I love they have like the intro to every episode, and like they have the clip of Bill Gates in every single one where he's like, you don't know what you're talking about. You've never known. Like it's so funny. It's so fucking funny. Yeah, and like there's a lot of good anecdotes, like the whole like the second episode, the whole like Valentine's Day massacre thing where like they had like a 6-hour meeting where Bill Gates and what's his name,
Ballmer.
But yeah, Palmer or Ballmer?
Steve
Ballmer. Are just like chewing them out for like 6
Yeah,
hours.
because they'd promised like we're gonna build a PC. It's a PC for the living room,
Yeah.
and they'd like cut back Windows and shown Bill Gates how fast Windows had booted up, and then he comes in with this slide deck, which is something totally different. It's like you lied to me, you've made a fool out of me, and I don't like this. Then like he's coming in like in attack mode, and they have to try and win him round to not shut down this console project.
Well, and like the way that they tell it, I just thought was so funny because it's like there's the thing where like they get yelled at for like 6 hours and they're arguing back and forth about why this has to be what we do if we're going to do it and why it can't be. And then, Bill and Steve are like, well, that can't be what we do. That's not what, whatever. And then they're just like, all right, well, let's just not do it. And then they're like, whoa, hold on. And then they're like, you know what? Let's do it. We're going to do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, because they were so worried about Sony. It's so crazy to me how worried they were about losing the living room because, we've got the home office, we've got the actual office, we've got everything else, but we don't have the living room and Sony's about to take it.
I mean...
And They did,
To be
right?
fair, yeah, like if they hadn't made Xbox, like they wouldn't have a place in the conversation of like home consumer technology, you know?
Yeah. But
Like
I
look at
love that,
every
and then
other thing
seeing.
they've ever made in that space. It's been a failure, right? Like
Mhm.
the Surface, like, their
Windows
attempted,
Phone.
yeah, the phone, Windows Phone, the Zune, like any other attempt they've made to enter a hardware space has been an utter failure.
Right, and they knew that, right? This small team knew that, and then they was going through the marketing stuff. It was like one, like some of the names they came up with, fucking 11x, and like how he's just like, yeah, the marketing people came in and was just like, we've got a name and it beats out Xbox in all of our focus groups, and okay, what's the name? 11x because it goes up to 11, and
And you
and
just
like
stared at
he's just
them.
like, yeah, I just stared at them, and they just went, okay, right, we'll go and try Xbox
We'll
again,
get on
but it was.
Xbox then.
Yeah, yeah, and then it was the whole thing. How do you go into a room and tell Bill Gates that the word Microsoft and his brand that he's worked so hard for is the reason, like, we can't put it on the product because no one will buy it because it's uncool and people associate with Microsoft Office
Yeah,
and they don't want to buy something by them.
that
Like, how do you go and do that?
oh, that was so fucking funny. Um, and I'm trying to find the name of the designer.
Oh, he was great. Yeah, he
I
was really
loved,
great.
yeah, I loved him. Um,
Yeah, he was really funny.
oh my god, what's his
And
name?
like
This is not him. Hmm.
I don't remember. But while you're looking, like, yeah, they were like talking about having did this machined aluminium thing, and they had like five of them, and every day after work they would just like polish it up to try and get it up to this chrome
Yeah, they made those
look,
giant fucking
giant
X's,
X's, yeah,
like
and
absolutely ridiculous.
even then the board didn't fit in it, that they had to like sandpaper down the side of the board just to cram it into this like X-shaped thing that they brought out on stage, which obviously was not going to be the final thing. But there were so many cool anecdotes like that they learned. They knew early on that to launch this thing they needed like exclusive games and they needed to get on board, and that they turned down GTA 3. They were like, "Oh no, I don't see how this is going to transition
I
from
had
like a
never
2D
heard
game
that. I
to
was like,
like
"Are
a
you
3D
fucking
game."
kidding me?" Like,
Yeah.
what
It's
an
like GTA 3 could have been an exclusive to Xbox and they just like turned it down. They were like, no, we don't want that.
Can you imagine if to this day, like, we thought of Grand Theft Auto as like,
Like an Xbox game? Yeah, it would be bizarre.
you know, and like we were
And
that close?
and I do think like if the Red Ring thing hadn't have happened, like how different would things be? Because the PS3 was clearly such a disastrous launch. When they came out and it was like
Yeah,
$599, it's just like no one's gonna buy that for that price when the Xbox has been out for a year already, beat you to the punch, has Halo on it. And this was prior to them to Microsoft to Sony having stuff like the Uncharted and the big like single player. This is what we come here for, right? They sort of came in the PS3 era. So I really think if that Red Ring hadn't have happened, maybe Xbox would be like more dominant in the marketplace, and maybe we wouldn't even have things like Game Pass because they wouldn't need to compete as much.
maybe it's tough to say because like Xbox was still very dominant that generation, and like PlayStation had to like claw its way back to
Hmm.
relevance, you know, and like I don't know that wouldn't have happened either way, just because like they were the architects of their own destruction, and like as much as the Red Ring was like a huge fucking black eye for Xbox, they also like they dealt with it pretty well. You know, like when you really like they were like, "Hey, we fucked up. We're going to spend $1 billion+ and fix it and sorry."
Shut down the factories like within a month of finding out that all of these consoles were failing and stuff, and it was the right way to handle it. But and I thought it was so cool how they didn't just have Xbox people, right? We had Snoop Dogg show up. We had the the head of Sony
Yeah,
PlayStation's head
Jim
of
Jim Ryan.
he was like over here like
Or
giving
no, no,
out
no.
giving an interview. It wasn't Jim Ryan, it was the prior one who was there in the PS3 era, and he's
Jack
like, I
Tretton.
just inherit. Yes, he's like, I inherited the Titanic just after it
Hit the iceberg.
it just hit the iceberg, and I'm like, wow, that's fucking brutal.
Here he
Jeff
is.
Keighley's there. So there's like a bunch of people that you know that aren't just Xbox people. But Don Matrick gave his first interview in 5 years. He left after he had that disastrous announcement of the Xbox One. He left Microsoft and went to Zynga. But I think he insinuated in this interview that wasn't necessarily by his choosing. Like he had this quote of, "I wish I'd been able to stay in order to execute my vision,"
Yeah.
and he obviously was not allowed to do that. So whether he was like fired or asked to leave or was going to be moved somewhere else within Microsoft, he was being
Well, and it
kind of
was like
pushed
this.
aside a little bit.
It's the same thing that happened with Peter Moore, right? Like they have the thing where Peter Moore, like this happens and he had to go explain what happened. And then it's like, oh, he conveniently left that position a year later. Huh. Yeah, it's like, no, they absolutely shit canned both of them. Like, absolutely. And it was very funny the way the documentary kind of like skirted around being like, we got fucking fired because of these mistakes. You know, like,
Yeah.
it's funny. I remember Sarah like watched the whole thing with me, and she was just like, "It's kind of incredible that Xbox exists, huh?" Like it seems like every generation,
So incredible.
they had there was a moment where the entire brand could have just either not existed or collapsed.
Yeah.
And
But
the fact that
I mean,
both of the consoles got made in like 2 years is not a thing that I knew.
oh yeah, that's crazy how well, like, because you look at the Xbox, we knew it was a bit scatty and put together, right? It was this big box. It was basically a PC, had no kind of security stuff in it whatsoever. It was hackable like crazy. Everyone hacked the original Xbox. Xbox 360, like, what a phenomenal achievement! Like we had a revolutionary OS that we've never seen on a home console before that could do all of this cool stuff. We had the inclusion of the Xbox store and the Microsoft store and downloading games. You had a hard drive like on the console that was swappable out. You had all of this awesome stuff that was in there. A deep connection to Xbox Live that added like party chat wherever you were on the console, which some consoles, Switch, still doesn't have today. It's insane to me. I also loved the Xbox Live. The code name for it was X Zone. I just loved the fact that it could have been called X Zone, which is the worst name for an online service.
It's so
it really is
bad.
terrible.
It sounds like a children's trampoline park or something.
I want to go to X Zone, Mom.
Also, I finally found this man's name, and it's Horace Luke, who was the creative director on the Xbox. And the entire section about him, like designing the Xbox, and like when they were like talking to him about it, and there's like I forget who it was, but it's one of the other leads on the project is describing it to him, and he's like, every day you just walk in, and he's like, it's gonna have like a giant green light, and it's gonna blind people, and like.
Yeah, we called it like the green eye, didn't it? It's green laser eyes going to shoot out and like show how powerful it is right in the middle. Yeah, I thought it was cool, but it also struck me how strange the design process for the original Xbox was versus how the approach they took moving forward, right? He was brought in last minute. It was like, right, we've got the board done, we've got the design done. Here's the board for the controller. Inside. You've now got to fit this in something. And he's left with this fucking ginormous board that they've already started manufacturing and printing and producing, and no case to put it in yet. And he's got to somehow work around that. It wasn't, right, we've come up with this possible case design, and we've come up with this possible board design. Let's work together as a team and put something together. It was so rushed that they just were working completely separately, and it was just like, right, now put something together for us, Horace.
I mean, it's absolutely wild that they announced the product before they had developed any part of it, right? Like they're like, oh, the Xbox is coming out, and it's like, we don't have a board or a design, like a box yet. It's like, why?
Don't have a box, don't have a controller.
Why did you tell anybody?
Like, yeah, I guess they needed to get developers on board, and I had no idea how impressive the original demos were, where you got Seamus Blackley on stage, and the whole anecdote of he was really nervous, he didn't want to come up because his previous game was a
Yeah.
total disaster and everyone was going to laugh at him. Had no idea about any of that.
I felt
And
so
then
bad for
the
him. I was like,
demos,
damn, that
I did
sucks. That's
too.
scary.
Yeah, but now he's like the the father of
Yeah,
Xbox,
he's
so like
fine.
he's super well respected. Yeah, but
It worked out.
the demos he showed with all the physics stuff and all the like mouse traps on the floor, and how blown away everyone at GDC was because of that. It's crazy.
It's crazy to think that it's like such a novel thing now. It's like, can you imagine though? You're like, oh my god, physics in a video game for the first time. You know, it's like it's so funny. Like that's always a fun thing too.
I feel like it was Half-Life 2, right? That really
Think,
added like the
yeah,
first proper physics engine into something with the Source engine,
I think you're right.
and it had that like, oh, you move the box, you can throw them, you can smash them, you can do all of this kind of stuff. And then they really ran with the physics stuff, and ultimately took games to places that they couldn't have taken them without the physics engine. Like, they without the physics stuff, they wouldn't have been able to make a game like Portal.
Yeah, I mean, just like even just like we're like, what are we talking about with Halo? What's the coolest thing in it? It's the grappling
It's
hook
the
and how it
physics,
interacts
man,
with the
and
physics.
pushing you forward. Yeah, yeah. Oh, and I loved the stuff where Bill Gates went to Bungie, and he just couldn't fathom. So he's like, "And you have real artists working here?
Yeah,
You've got
that
like a studio for like
there are
audio?"
artists that work here. Like, so funny. Real quick, how did you clock Laura Bailey was the narrator?
I did, but only because it came up as
Yeah.
the at the end. It didn't sound anything like her.
No, I
She's
know.
like got this. She's got this like real stern voiceover voice, right? Like, I'm presenting a news program.
Yeah, and it's just funny because like it's like Laura Bailey, really? Like she's like most famous for voicing a PlayStation character. You know, it's like maybe why don't we get the voice of Cortana in here or something? You know?
Oh yeah, that would have been quite cool. Yeah, yeah. God, crazy.
But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I sat down to watch the first one and was like, oh, I'm gonna watch these in like chunks, and I ended up watching the entire thing in like a day, like off and
Yeah, I
on.
couldn't stop. I watched them.
Yeah,
I watched them all in the course of a day. It was so good. It was
it's
so
very interesting.
enjoyable to watch.
Yeah,
Yeah, really interesting. So many cool little tidbits and anecdotes that you'll learn. Great to see insight from people. I love how the job titles change through each thing as well, right?
yeah.
Phil Spencer's there, and it's like Phil Spencer, like head of Xbox marketing between this day and this day. And like, obviously, we know that Phil Spencer is the head of Xbox, but rather than saying that, we like give his job title in the context of what he was doing at this time.
Yeah. I like that choice as well because it's cool to see like characters like that develop, you know, where it's like, oh yeah, like Phil Spencer was like a fucking intern, you know, and like he became the head of Xbox. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And yeah, I mean, you know, we're obviously fans of Phil Spencer. We've expressed that before. But yeah, it's so funny to see like we obviously knew that he inherited a bad bag, but it's like, man, like actually just watching it in real time of like Xbox just fumbled the ball so fucking colossally.
Oh, big time.
You know,
Like
like
the fact that you had Major Nelson there saying like, yeah, it wasn't a great idea to show all TV and no games at the first thing, and like we all had this idea of we're gonna reveal it here and show everything it can do, and then at E3 we'll show the games. But in hindsight, we should have showed the games in
yeah.
the reveal, because that's what people knew Xbox as. It wasn't a entertainment TV machine all in one thing, and like they had the same mistake that they had with the PS3 of charging too much because they had to bundle it with Kinect and all of the stuff that Phil rolled back when he came on. It's like, right, you don't have to have Kinect now. Now we're selling it without Kinect, and we're closing down the Microsoft TV studios and film studios that we set up, because it was like, what's the point? Why don't we invest those funds and build more games and things like that? Like,
He just
you
came
know,
in
a lot
and
of good
cleaned
stuff.
house. Like,
Yeah.
like absolutely just gutted that strategy and was like, nope, course correction. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like, obviously the right call, but yeah, a bold
And
decision.
and I was like blown away when Major Nelson explained the whole game sharing thing so much better. It made so much more sense to me. It was like, no, this was just like we never got it across properly. It was you can install the game from the disk, and the disk is really just like an installation process because the internet structure was so bad back then.
Right.
And you just have a key that you've bought, and you can still share your games with people if you want to. There's no problem. You can like share them around, and it was absolutely fine to do that. And you can trade them in, and you can do whatever you want with them. But the idea of the disc was, well, if you have the disc and you know someone has the disc and you want to own the game yourself, you can just install the game on your hard drive and you don't have to worry about downloading it from the store. And when you hear that of like, oh, they were trying to solve a problem, but they never once managed to explain that in a real way that people can understand.
I think it speaks to the fact that the biggest problem with what they were doing was the marketing of it. Like, yes, some of the decisions were bad, right? Like Xbox shouldn't have been investing in television. That never made sense. That was never a good idea. But and I mean, maybe not never, but not in the way they were at that time. Is what I should say.
And I think it's because they were watching Sony, right? Because Sony has Columbia Pictures, and they wanted to like bring their characters. There was a talk of like, oh, there's going to be the Uncharted movie coming around the PS3 era. Still not here, but it's coming. And they had their like thing with the Halo TV show. They wanted to get that out, and they had the Quantum Break stuff with Remedy and integrating all that TV stuff. Like they really wanted to compete with what Sony was doing, and they had their eyes so in on that they lost focus of what they should have been doing, which was great video games.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you can see, the ways in which Xbox has reversed their fortunes there, for sure. But yeah, it's what I was driving to is like there was a clear marketing problem. Like they didn't understand how to message things, and like to hear Major Nelson, like, clarify those things, it's like, oh wow, yeah, that isn't a controversial or confusing thing at all. Why did they message it in that way? Like why did they message it in such a convoluted way when ultimately it was just like, yeah, it's just a key and you can use it as many times as you want. Remember like PC keys? It's like that. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and people know PC keys, they still exist today. Like you get a Steam key and you put it in Steam and it's now your game, right?
But just be like, but it's unlimited. Like you can do it as many times as you want. Like that's all they had to say.
Yeah.
Okay. It's wild. It's truly wild. Yeah, and like just to see like that meteoric rise and fall of the Xbox 360 to the Xbox One. And then now, seeing where we are today, where Xbox is clearly, I think back in a good place and, has been building out like a new healthy future for themselves. So yeah, it's certainly been a ride. And it feels like finally Xbox has a vision for the future in a way that like they probably never actually had before now. So shout out to Phil Spencer. He seems like he's on the ball over there. So it's a good time to be an Xbox fan for sure. So if you haven't checked out the documentary, highly recommend it. Power On, the story of Xbox, over on YouTube or a bunch of other places, but that's where we watched it. So
yeah, I would recommend watching it on YouTube. Like, do you really want to watch it on Redbox or the Roku channel?
Maybe
Probably not.
Maybe you do.
Just watch it on YouTube. And every time it would come up with like this Las Vegas like TV 14 thing, and I was like, why have you like rated this YouTube documentary?
Because it must, yeah. I guess just so they could put it on TV at some point, I would imagine.
Yeah, it was weird.
It was, very, very weird. Very weird to see that. But anyway, yeah, check it out. Thank you guys for joining us here in another episode of the FlipScreen Games podcast. Our last proper show for the year. Reminder to tune in for our special holiday episode on Wednesday. We'll have Chewy on the show. We'll be wrapping things up for the year. So if you haven't already, please go and write into the show with your questions or comments about the year and what's going to go down in 2022. And, like writing about Halo. You got some thoughts on Halo? Hit us with them, You want to come play with me? We have a Halo channel on our Discord, and Steve and I both dropped our gamer tags there. So come at us, come play. We'll probably have some time to do that over the holidays, so maybe we can get some Halo streams going. Let's do it. So hit me up, and write in about whatever else is on your mind. And again, if you want to get us all across the web, FlipScreen.games, that's our website. We have links to all of the places you can find us. Of course, the best place to go and show your support is to head over to the Patreon, patreon.com/FlipScreenGames, where you can get a bunch of perks and goodies that will carry you into the next year. So, yeah, go check that out if you need some content from us during our little, break here at the end of the year. There's a huge backlog of stuff you can check out, like Steve Shenmue's stream and, 20
Which
plus
broke me
episodes
this week.
of One More Thing. What's
Yeah,
that?
so much One More Thing, but the Shenmue stream just broke me this week.
That
fucking
clip,
kick.
that clip was so funny. It was so good. Yeah, so bunch of good stuff to check out in the interim, and of course we will be back on Wednesday. We'll have our last stream of the year, and then it will be a little quiet over here until the first week of January when we come back in full force. So
We got a week off for our birthdays, Pete. That's what it is.
yeah. We I could use the downtime this year. It's oof. But I'm very, very excited for what we've got planned in 2022. I think there's going to be a lot of good stuff coming to the channel, and yeah. So thank you all for your support over these last 20 episodes so far. Looking forward to what comes next, and I obviously will see you again on Wednesday. But have a happy holiday and all that stuff, and a happy New Year. All right. So for the FlipScreen Games podcast, I've been Pete. He's been Steve. See you next week. No, Wednesday. I just went through
Wednesday
this.
and in the new year.
You can see how my whole brain is just fucking on autopilot, right? Like, God. See you next Wednesday. Bye.